So just wanted to go over a couple things with your next project for this week. You're going to be finishing out one of your sketches. So you're picking one and you're going to try to make it look a little more detailed. You're going to practice your brush work and incorporating some of the shading that we talked about and some of the stuff that we did with the sphere. So it's kind of all coming together now. You're going to use your brushes. So you see I still have that brush left down here from the creating brushes. So you try to create some brushes if you can and go through your brushes and utilize them for texture if you can. Take a look at some of the supporting videos. I think I'm going to put the painting rocks on there. So take a look at that, and we'll talk a moment when we get there about light stuff. But to begin with, I kind of want to show you one more time workspace a little. Just notice that changed up the workspace a little bit more, and I just wanted to show you that you can save a workspace. So right now I currently have this one named My Paint Space 01. And so if I want to go to say Essentials and go back to Essentials, and that's how we started off. A little bit different having the windows separate like this, and then I can go back into my space, and so I'll never lose this now. I can keep coming back, and I can just open up this way if I choose. If you have multiple monitors, this is really cool. You can set up multiple monitors this way, so you have some tools on certain monitors and things like that, which is really helpful. But just to save one, let's just add something here. I'll add the channels layer. So I'll put the channels here in this box, and you can see these are channels. We'll talk a little bit about channels later. But basically, I can save or rather, it doesn't say save, so that's a little bit weird. It says new workspace. So the workspace I'm in, do you want to make a new one? I'll say yes. And I'll just call it space 1 and say save. I'm not too worried about it. It's basically the same thing. I just want to show you that it's a little bit different. So if I go to now my paint space, you'll see. Oh, I changed it. So let me reset. Let me reset my paint space because it had that on there, and that's what I built from, right? So you can see that now my paint space doesn't have channels. This might be a little confusing. And then space 1 does have channels. So just notice that it's pretty awesome to be able to keep your spaces and work with them that way. So use that when that's just making sense to you, okay? So what I want to start with in terms of just painting, I'm not going to spend a lot of time here. I'm just really going to set you up and then let you get going on it. Couple things to pay attention to in the layers. So we have a lot of layers. So what I want to do is actually collapse all this into one group. I'm going to keep the layers. I do like having layers. I just, so I can go back in if I want to ever work with them a little bit. It's kind of cool. There's a couple things we can do with layers to collapse them. We can do what's called merging layers. And some of you are probably familiar with the idea of a merge visible, flatten image. There's a couple other ways to do this. But really, not necessary in this case. We could just really use the group, and I guess I do want you guys thinking about groups. Merging is nice, but let's not talk about that right now. Let's just group all this. So a great way to do this is just select everything in this whole layer stack. So everything here, and then I'm just going to go down. Instead of creating a new layer, I'm going to click on new group. So I think it calls it a group, right? It looks like a folder. To me, a folder and a group are real similar ideas. So just going to click on that. And just notice how everything just went into that group. And so now it looks like I only have one layer, but it's actually a group and not a layer. So if I click on that triangle, you can see all those things open up. So I'll just name this. I'll call it tree sketch, right? And now I've got this open spot here, or not open spot, just a collapsed group, and I don't have to see all these layers now, but I can see everything that was in that layer. You can lock a group too, so you don't accidentally work on it. So all those are locked now, and so that's sort of a locked area, and I can't touch it. It's just basically like a thing behind me, right? Like that I'm looking at. And so from here I can start making groups. And this is basically what I did. I just made a group, and then I started painting. So like for instance, let's give this a name. I'll call it rock foreground. Let's do that maybe just to help you know what I'm talking about. So I'm talking about these rocks right here. This is actually a slightly different painting than I showed in the video, but that's fine. I'll go to a regular brush tip shape, just the round, and just start there. And I'm using my tablet, and basically just started painting out one more time. Now, what I want to really point out though is that the sun. So just real quickly, let's just kind of think about this. So looking at this image right here, right? I see the sun coming this way, right? That's a really big brush. Let's make it tiny. That's even too small. Let's make it a little bit bigger, and maybe let's make it red. So I'm seeing the sun kind of coming like this, and I'm seeing that especially right here because this shadow right here is happening. All of this area right here, all of this is in shadow, right? The tree has some shadows. Some of these rock areas have shadows, but they're all kind of falling away, right? And so this is areas in the shadow, but then those bushes are not, right? So I'm seeing the sun kind of coming from this direction, right? And so that's an important thing for you to try to recognize. Even notice that the tree, right? This part of the tree is all in shadow, right? And then you'll see these little areas here behind these big bushes. These are in shadow as well. So, you can just kind of, for a little bit, just try to think, okay, well, what's in shadow and what's not in shadow, right? And we probably could have discussed this on the other image as well, but and some of you maybe started that way, but these are the shadow areas, and that's what I want to kind of think about while I'm painting. Like, where's the shadow, where's the light? And that was the same thing with the sphere, right? And you were kind of thinking that way. Let's just hide that because that's a little bit distracting. So that's our first thing, is really taking care of the light a little bit and thinking about where things are going to be. Okay, so I do want you thinking that way. So that might mean just taking a big brush and just being kind of big to start with, and just you got things laid out. Maybe maybe you like them, maybe you don't, but just you can use those as guidelines, or you can really follow them, whatever. But here's the other thing I want you to think about. Okay, so this image right here with the curly tree, I'm talking about this. I'm looking here at the curly tree, right? And it has all these colors all over it, right? And we could sit here and try and mix colors, and it's cool to learn to mix colors and everything. But I'm gonna actually I'm gonna pick colors off of here. So instead of trying to figure out what color everything is, probably should have spent more time looking at this closer, but I can see more detail. But the mix color that we get here is just right here. So let's just grab it. Let's take advantage of the fact that we have those colors, right? So I'm just gonna remember we use the Alt key to do this, right, or Option key. So I can pick color off the image I'm in, right? So I can get this green color or whatever. I can get this blue color, right? But I can also do it here, right? So I can come over here and grab the blue of the sky, and grab this light blue area. I can grab the green of the tree, right? And what's really kind of cool is just how you might not think that green exists on that tree, right? You might not think that is on that tree, but it actually is. You just picked it off there, right? And there's this other green, right? And I just picked that off the tree, and you wouldn't think that color was in that tree, but it is. And it makes sense because this is, we'll talk in a moment about this, but this is a warm green, and this is maybe a cool green. It's really almost gray, right? But those are the things that we would expect. And when the sun is hitting something, we'll expect a warmth. When the shadow is hitting something, we'll expect cool, right? So recognize that I'm just kind of picking colors off of the image, and so it's kind of cool. You can, if you're picking a color off here, it is in that image somehow, right? So I'm going to go on that rock area, and so this is the color of those rocks, right? Um, and when you listen to that guy talking, he actually that does the rocks, and I hope see if I get it on there, but he starts with the darker colors, right? And just again, notice that the shadow area has this blue tone to it, right? And I can just print this out. Like, let's just print this out. And what he did was really kind of worked on um, the big pieces first. And one of the things I started recognizing about this image is that, looking at the rocks, I kind of started making decisions about that, but like what sort of shapes they actually are, and I kind of started redefining them. And again, we could have started this way. Also, I mean, I think blocking out is nice and just helps you kind of start, especially if you're doing from from just your eye, right? Like our mind, rather. And take my eraser tool. I'm not super excited about what I just did right there, and so I can just drag that out. Don't like spacing on that eraser. And build this up, right? And then grab, I'm going to get my brush tool again and just grab one of the lighter colors. So I've got kind of this pink now, and make my brush a little bit smaller. And just start now just kind of thinking about, okay, well, where are the areas that are kind of lighter? And then where are the areas that are kind of not lighter? And so I kind of had to play around with mine a little bit because I'm not following exactly what they're doing, but let's just say it's kind of the sunlight's kind of crossing over and just hitting those little areas, right? So I'm just kind of picking those areas, and obviously he goes through and talks about some ways to approach rocks, and again, not really studying these rocks very carefully. One of the things I recognize is that it kind of has these loping kind of curvy things happening to them, and I kind of started doing something like that where wrapping around like that. Not the best color. So again, just kind of going through and picking out like, so here's that light tan area. So now I can start kind of going through and kind of focusing on the darker tones, and then kind of working my way into lighter tones, right? And just kind of not gonna spend a lot of time on this, but you can see, and I'm just gonna pick out kind of that lighter top. And you might even be really super surprised when you actually do it, right? That those are the colors you're actually getting off the image, and that's a good thing. You should sort of be surprised. So basically, I'm just going to kind of go through, and I'm going to paint. It takes a long time to paint, so don't get discouraged as you go. It might look pretty rough for a while until you find get the flow of what you're trying to do. Organize your thoughts around the actual rocks you're doing, or whatever it is. Maybe you're doing grass, or I don't know what you're doing. Leaves. I haven't even tried leaves. You'll see in a moment what I did for that, or not the leaves, but for other parts. So that's using, think about the light and the shadow, thinking about using the actual image that you're working from to get the colors, right? Which is really awesome. Don't forget to just keep making layers. So like, say I might do another layer. So let's call this, I'll just call this rock 4 again. So it's the exact same thing. Basically just organizing these by the same name. So each groups are related. And you could approach this in a lot of different ways, but I think it's helpful to make sure you're keeping your names and using names. Oh, almost used an actual pen on my tablet. So, I can just stick with these brushes, or you can start moving into other brushes like texture. And that's why I made a second brush there. And we talked about this last class, or a second layer rather. We talked about this last class, and just taking something like this, maybe I'm out of the brush tool. Taking something like this, like we use that sponge brush. We playing around with spacing or whatever you need to do. Maybe do a little bit of angle jitter, just to kind of get that thing a little bit randomize, maybe do a little bit of sizing. You might even now start to think about, since we've talked about brushes, you might be interested in adding a little bit of scatter on there. Um, and for that matter, we use transfer now, right? And so now the transfer, the flow is being controlled by the amount that I press down, right? So if I make this brush a little bit bigger, and now when I press out, I get these more randomized looks, right? Let's maybe make that a little bit, let's make it smaller. And so now when I'm painting out here, I'm getting the texture. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this. Maybe pick a little bit of a really dark area and texture out on the rocks and just start to build out some texture. And the point being is that one of these layers is I'm kind of using for texture, and one I'm using for just the color, right? And I think it helps to kind of organize your thoughts. It's not, you can work directly right on the same layer if you want. Just, I started doing that a lot on the other image. It's up to you. So this is where I've gotten so far with mine, and you can see that I've got a lot more layers. I've gotten the sky a little more organized. Let's turn this down so you can see this sketch layer. That's my sketch layer, which I didn't actually lock it here, but that's fine. The layers are coming in. I'm starting to do my tree. I'm working on the shadows. I'm getting details on the rocks. Here's that brush I talked about with the bush. I guess the one thing that I would leave you with is just with the shadows, and I kind of alluded to it just a moment ago, and I just want to repeat it one more time. Just recognize how the light areas of your image are going to be golden, where the sun is hitting. You're going to see golden colors like that. And where you're in the shadow areas, you're going to see blue areas, right? And the reason why that is because the sun is yellow, and so it casts a yellow tone. And then if it's not hitting, if the sun's not hitting something, then you're getting ambient light or reflected light from the sky, and the sky is blue. And so all your shadows are going to turn blue. You might want to take a moment when you have an overcast day. Just notice how color changes around you, because you no longer have yellow and blue reflecting. It changes things. Another time to notice this is actually at night when the sun sets but there's still light out. Notice how everything goes to grays. You'll notice colors kind of disappear and everything kind of goes into grays. It's kind of interesting to watch if you pay attention to it. But that's basically it. So take your time, get to painting, and check out those other videos as they make sense to you, and we'll see your paintings later. I can't wait to see them.